What's happening, guys? Today I want to talk about what to do if tracking macros or counting calories does not work for you. Alright, so this is something I get quite a bit. People will say, well, I don't want to track macros or I don't want to count calories because I've tried it before and it doesn't work. So I want to address this. Now first I want to say, I'm not saying that the only way you can possibly ever see results is to track your macros. I'm not saying that. Right? It's a very effective tool, but there are other ways to do things. But what I am saying is, regardless of you're tracking your calories or not, or tracking your macros, regardless of this, if you are losing weight, you are doing so because you are in a caloric deficit. And see, this is how any diet works. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about keto or Atkins or Weight Watchers or Advocare or whatever, any diet out there. If you're losing weight, you're doing so because that diet put you into a caloric deficit. Same with like intermittent fasting or anything else. It's just because you're eating less, all right? There's no magic protocol here. So here's the reason why you didn't lose weight. If you were tracking macros and you were just tracking calories and it didn't work, there's basically two reasons why this didn't work. Okay, one, you weren't eating in a deficit, right? So regardless of what some online calculator told you, you're not in a deficit. You have to understand that everybody's body is different and unique. You have to take in individual genetics and diet history and these other things into account. You can't just plug in your numbers into a TDEE calculator and take away a few hundred calories and just assume that's going to work. For most people, it actually won't work because most people have a pretty long history of dieting and their metabolism isn't in a place where it probably should be had they never dieted before. All right, so you have to keep that in mind. So problem number one is you just weren't in a deficit. If you were tracking and you didn't lose weight, you were in a deficit. Or you just weren't being consistent or you weren't being honest, right? That's the other thing. Or you just weren't tracking very well, right? So yeah, sure, you might have been tracking macros, you might have been counting, but were you consistent with it? Were you tracking everything? All right? Were you honest with yourself? Were you having cheats that you didn't track? Were you doing different things that you weren't being 100% honest with? So if you're not being consistent, well then you can't really say that tracking macros didn't work because you weren't tracking them. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be honest with yourself and you have to be consistent and make sure that what you're doing is accurate. So if you're not accurately tracking, if you're not measuring things out and weighing it and making sure that you're being diligent with what you're doing, well then you're actually eating more calories than you think you are, and therefore it's not working because you're eating more calories than you're actually tracking. So those are the two biggest things. Now, again, I'm not saying that you have to track. I'm not saying that. There are ways to go in a deficit without tracking. But to say that tracking macros doesn't work is just kind of ignorant because it has to work. Like, if you were in a deficit, you will lose weight. So the only reason why it won't is if you can't get to low enough calories to actually be in a deficit, probably because of a history of dieting, extreme dieting behaviors, where your metabolism has now adapted to very low calories and or really high cardio. Now you have to get to such low levels of calories or high levels of cardio that dropping weight just becomes unrealistic because you'd have to go so extreme to actually see results that it doesn't work. And this is where reverse dieting comes into play. And I have done a lot of videos on reverse dieting before. I will put a link in the description to a whole playlist of reverse dieting that will go over what it is and what to expect and all the different things. But if you are at this point where you have been very honest, all right, you have been consistent, your calories are very low and you are not seeing results, I promise you that switching to some magic fat loss program isn't going to fix you. It's not going to fix the problem. What you need to do is work on improving your metabolism through a reverse diet. So that's why it didn't work, but hey, I am not the be-all end-all. I am open to a healthy discussion where people aren't being nasty. If you disagree, let's talk about it. Let me know your thoughts in your comments below and we'll talk about it. And other than that, I will talk to you guys later.
I'm addicted to the love that you're giving. Every minute, every day I've been craving